All right, foodie. What's going on, foodie fam? We're going to do chicken and biscuits. Not chicken and dumplings, but chicken and biscuits, all right? Let's get it. All right, first and foremost, we're gonna go ahead and start with the ingredients. We do have some parsley, onions, carrots, celery. We have a roasted chicken. We just broken it apart and chopped down. Onion powder, paprika, garlic, red chili flakes, and black pepper, okay? We are going to use, this is gonna be a quicker version, and we're gonna use some roasted chicken bouillon, some garlic, and we're also gonna use some heavy whipping cream, okay? Now, I'm gonna make the biscuits later, so I'll show you how to make the biscuits in a few. All right, so first thing is we have our vegetable medley, our onion, celery, and carrots, and we're gonna saute this down a little bit. Once it sautés down, we want it translucent, but we're gonna let this go for a little bit. We have this on medium heat, so it's gonna do slow and slow. While we're doing that, we're going to start prepping our biscuits. All right, so as you can see, the vegetables have actually reduced down a lot, and I put a little bit of the garlic in there. So at this stage right here, what we want to do is actually add some flour, and we want to just put the flour in and kind of cook the flour out a little bit. We are not going to use, we can use self-rising or all-purpose, it doesn't really matter actually. You know, I was about to say it does, but it really doesn't. So we're not gonna use a lot, we're just gonna use a little bit. This is more for thickening, and we just use a little bit. If I had some cornstarch, I could use the cornstarch also, and that actually will cut down on some of the stuff right here. So I'm just gonna mix this in and let it cook out for a little bit, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with our stock. Since we don't have any right now available, we're going to use the bouillon stock right here, okay? All right, so if you notice, I added like a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons of the better than bouillon base in here. If I had a bouillon cube, I could use a bouillon cube. I'm also going to add some water to this. There we go. Adding the water to it. Yeah. So that better than bouillon is actually gonna make this like a stock. And once we get this to what we want it to be, we're gonna cook this down a little bit more. I'm gonna add a little bit more water to it. We'll be fine. There we go. So just enough to go over the vegetables a little bit, not too much. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add our seasoning. All right, so I've added the paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, and I added also the black pepper into this. We're not gonna add any salt because the better than bouillon has salt in it, so we're good on that. All right, so after letting this sit for a second and simmering with some of the seasonings, I'm gonna taste the stock. Tastes good. All right, so what we also have right now is some heavy whipping cream. I'm gonna add that into it. Okay. And this is what's gonna give it that creamy look and flavors to it. All right. That looks good. And now, also, we're gonna take our chicken, and we're gonna add our chicken. Now I don't want this to splash on me, so I'm gonna turn this off and show you how we're gonna add our chicken in there. Hopefully don't see, I didn't want it to splash, but it did anyway. All right. So I don't need this to a boil right now. I don't need this to a boil at all. What I want to do is actually bring this down to closer to a simmer. Okay? So just gonna bring the temperature down on this. And I'm just gonna let this cook its way through. Everything is pretty much done in here. It's just waiting for the carrots to kind of soften up. And then what we're gonna add is our biscuits, and we're gonna put this in the oven. Let's put a lid on this right now. All right, so I added a little bit of the red chili flakes right over there, in here. And then I added the parsley. So the parsley is the last thing I needed to add in here. Now what we're going to do, I'm just gonna stir this. You see how thick this is right now? This is a perfect consistency that we're looking for. Now what we wanna do is we wanna get our biscuits right on top of this, and we're gonna put this in the oven, and we're gonna let it finish cooking in the oven, okay? Last step, let's go. All right, so we're gonna make our biscuits real quick. What I have is a measuring cup, and we're not gonna need much for the biscuits. Just gonna need about a cup of flour, just a cup. We're not making a large batch. Down a little bit, a little under a cup. And I am using self-rising flour. So if you use all-purpose, you're gonna have to add baking powder to it so it'll rise up properly. So right here, cup goes in there. Okay. Next thing you want to get is some butter. You want to get some cold, freezing cold butter out of the freezer, not the refrigerator. So stir this a little bit. Okay. So we're gonna get some boiled butter, but we're gonna grate this down. We want to grate this down, and we want to grate it fine. So this is a party. You're gonna have to do this really fast. Can't really be slow with it because you're gonna need some butter. All right. So you can use a small part of the grater, or you can use a big one. I use the big one just basically because it'll hold the butter a little longer, or the cold a little longer. So I'm gonna grate as much of this butter as possible. All right, so there we go. We've grated the butter. That's only half a stick because we're not making a lot, but put that in there. Okay. Now what you want to do, you want to grab a fork, and with the fork, you want to mix the butter in. You want to mash it in a little bit and get all the little kernels of butter in the flour. This is going to give you that moistness and that flakiness in the biscuits. Okay. You'll see little lumps in there. A lot of flour, little lumps. Next step. Now you can use buttermilk. I'm going to use buttermilk. I'm just doing a little bit of buttermilk. You're really only putting half the liquid in here. This is a quarter. And then I'm actually going to use a little bit of heavy whipping cream. Heavy whipping cream. Okay. So the total is half a cup of liquid. So all that goes in there. And now we also want to add half a liquid, some salt. Not much, just a little bit of salt. Okay. So, while this butter is still cold, put this in here. And it's going to be a wet mix. It's not going to be a dry mix. It's going to be pretty wet. And what we're gonna do with that wet mix, yeah, I know this is probably the longest I've ever had a long version on my videos, but I want you to see how easy this really is. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is get some flour, just a little bit, and spread it across here. We're going to get our biscuit mix, put it on here. All right. And you also want to get your hands with some flour. Put some flour on so it doesn't get stuck. With the biscuit, add flour on top of it. And now what you want to do is knead this up a little bit. Not play with it too much, just enough. Okay. Putting it down, pat, pat, pat. A little more flour on the bottom of the thing so it won't stick. Okay. So we're just gonna fold it, fold it, fold it, fold it, fold it, and that is it. We're not gonna go crazy with the folding. Okay? So our biscuits are ready. Now what we want to do with this here, we're going to cook this on top of everything. So we're just going to keep this ready to go. And what I like to do is go ahead and cut it. You got a biscuit cutter, go ahead and use the biscuit cutter, but you don't need one. You really don't. What you really need is just a knife. One, two, three, four, six. All right. So we got our little biscuit pieces right here, ready to go. Just gonna let this sit in the refrigerator until we're ready to go. All right, so this goes in the refrigerator. You can actually put this in the freezer if you like, but just put it in the refrigerator. And once we're ready for that, we'll go from there. And that's how you make biscuits. All right, so now we put the biscuits, the raw biscuits, on top of it, and we're going to slide this in the oven and give that some time at 425. All right, so this is coming out of the oven. Put a little bit of parsley lack on right here. I like to add a little bit of paprika. And that is it. We're gonna add a little tiny seasoning on it. All right, so that's it.